Welcome into Palmetto Sports Daily, this Tuesday edition. I'm Kevin Bilodeau here in Charleston, joined by Rick Henry in Columbia and Carmine Jamay in the Upstate. And guys, with no Talking Tuesday to get to this afternoon, we kick off with the NFL, and maybe the most Jekyll and Hyde team in the entire league right now is our own Carolina Panthers, coming off an improbable victory at home over the Rams this past weekend, a game I told you that the Panthers would win. I'm pretty sure that's how I put it last week. So, guys, this team just continues to defy all kinds of logic, and winning games they shouldn't win and losing games they shouldn't lose. And Carmine, I'll start with you. Is this a team we need to take seriously as we come down the home stretch of the regular season?
Well, I'm not going to say they're really a good team, but they're definitely feisty. Like, you can't really count them out. You don't know what they're going to do any week, like you said, Kevin, Jekyll and Hyde. And like Katy Perry said, they're hot and they're cold, they're yes and they're no. But in this case, they were in and not out against the LA Rams, somehow turning Matthew Stafford over 3 times after he set that incredible record of throwing 28 touchdowns in a row without an interception. And then all of a sudden, even without a lot of their secondary, including Gamecocks legend J.C. Horn, who's one of the highest paid defensive backs in the entire league, the Panthers secondary played great, and then they just keep pounding like their phrase on 4th down. 2 of their touchdowns go for 25 and 40-yard touchdown passes on 4th and 2 and 4th and 3. Dave Canales has just done a great job of rallying everybody together, and Chuba Hubbard, you see right there, even though he got replaced by another Gamecocks legend, Rico Dowdle, as the starting running back, but he came in and played great when his number was called, and I think went for 130 scrimmage yards. So I don't really think it's like a foolproof team that has everything figured out, although Jalen Coker coming back as another big target with T-Mac, Tetero McMillan on the other side. Looks like the wide receiving core is slowly starting to come together. So I'm not fully sold that they're good, but you can't count them out against any team. And heading into the bye week, they're supposed to, according to Dave Canales, get J.C. Horn back healthy, and then hopefully another win over the Saints here, Rick. And Panthers all of a sudden could be in the playoffs in just a few weeks.
Yeah, let's just pump the brakes a little bit. Like you said, they showed us that they can be good and they can beat good teams, but they need to start stringing these wins together against really good teams, having great efforts each time out. I mean, they laid a stinker on Monday night, and then they come back and beat the Rams. The Rams could be the best team in the league, and I think it depends on how the quarterback plays, on how Bryce Young plays. He had a great game on Sunday. I got to give it to him. He made the throws he had to make, and he made them during crucial times of the game. Now, they get a bye week, and so let's see what happens when they play the Saints. And they still have Tampa Bay there on the schedule, and that's going to be a big game when they play the Buccaneers. But I'm impressed with what they've shown us when they play really well. But if this inconsistency, even if they do make the playoffs, you have to put together good game after good game, and maybe some great games in there if you want to make a deep run in the playoffs. But so far, so good with the Panthers.
Yeah, Rick, it's actually 2 games against Tampa Bay.
Right.
Sorry, Carmine. It's actually 2 games against Tampa Bay over the course of those final 3 games. You mix in a game with the Seahawks as well, and then that game with the Saints coming up after this bye week. I think the big question at this point is, does that win say more about what the Panthers did, or does it say more about what the Rams are? Are they the best team in the league, or is that just kind of a blip in the road for them going in at this point? After this one, Dave Canales talking about the win over the Rams.
I mean, I said this a few weeks ago that I prayed so many times for moments like this. Been in Carolina 5 years now, and the goal has been to bring wins to Carolina, bring good football to Carolina, no matter how that looks. So that's always been my goal. I know that's been the goal of other guys here that have been here since way back as well.
Nobody gave us a shot all week, right? So, I mean, everybody within this locker room, it's been that way since we were 1-3. And, everybody was like, here we go again. And, for us to be able to sit in here and be able to have that resilience, just to come to work every single day and, put our best foot forward and go out here and try to win these games. I mean, that's what it's been from day one when we showed up at OTAs.
We have a lot of highs and a lot of lows. We got to learn how to stay consistent, learn how to elevate, get better every single day. We can't have drop-offs like we do sometimes, but definitely our finish and our resilience is is something that's big.
Rick, you talked about Bryce Young and his play in that game in the win over the Rams. He's had some huge days this season. He had that 400-yard game a few weeks back as well. Had other weeks where it doesn't look like he's a guy who should have been the number one pick a few years ago. He is eligible for a fifth-year extension after this season. So I ask you guys, right now, do you give Bryce Young a fifth-year extension, and do you work on signing a long-term deal with him, Carmine?
Right now, based on where the season is with this team with a winning record and a chance to win the division, especially like you guys said with those two matchups against the Bucs, maybe get to the playoffs for the first time since 2017, I believe, I think yes. And you give him one more chance to get a final year because he's really galvanized this group. You know, you see him go down a couple games ago and he, gets right back up, and you can never question his heart. And he has not had the best wide receiving weapons. Now with this, Tedero McMillan first-round pick and the X-Man, Xavier Legette, hasn't really shown what he's supposed to be as another first-round pick. But Jalen Coker coming on strong. Trimble, the tight end, looks good. So they got some younger wide receivers. And the way he's galvanized everybody. And you got to lean on the run game, too, with Rico and Chuba. I think definitely yes at this point. Now, at the start of the year, I don't think I would have said that, but proven what he's proven with these big wins, the ceiling's high, but the floor is very low. So like you said, Rick, they have to continue and string these wins together, not just a flash in the pan and then lose to a bad team.
Yeah, I'd give him an extension, but I would be somewhat nervous about doing it. And hopefully he can play well the rest of the season. I'd feel a lot better about it then. But right now, a little nervous, but okay, we'll give you a shot because they've won 7 games, and that equals their win total for the previous 2 years. So they are making some progress. All right, that's going to wrap up the first segment of Palmetto Sports Daily. We'll take our first time out, and we've got much more for you on this Tuesday edition of Palmetto Sports Daily. And welcome back to Palmetto Sports Daily. In our opening period, we talked about the Carolina Panthers, and right now we're going to talk some college football, starting with the Gamecocks. The Gamecocks are done with a 4-8 record. They would love to be getting ready for a bowl, but that's not going to be the case. What Shane Beamer is doing right now is getting ready for 2026. Tomorrow is signing day. We'll see what kind of signing class he can bring in, and if he can bring in some guys that can be of immediate help for South Carolina as they look to turn things around. And also he's got to hire an offensive coordinator. He fired Mike Shula, and we had Mike Furry calling the plays for the final games. At times the offense looked pretty good. Then they had that second half against Texas A&M where they blew that 27-point lead. So let me ask you guys, how crucial is this offseason for South Carolina, and what's the most important thing that he has to get done here over the next few weeks?
I mean, for the program as a whole, Rick, it's immensely important. For Shane Beamer, it's probably everything, because if they get off to a bad start next year, there is definitely a world where Beamer is out of a job, going into October next year, if South Carolina gets off to a bad start, even before October, if it gets off to a really bad start. A lot of things he's got to put off the checkmark list, as far as things he needs to get done this offseason. I think number one is figuring out what he's going to do at quarterback. Is Lenora Sellers coming back? Is he going to enter the draft? Is he entering the portal? What he needs a QB1. That needs to be the most important thing. And if it's not going to be Sellers, he needs to start, rooting around in the portal and figure out who that's going to be next year. The offensive coordinator is extremely important as well, but it doesn't matter if you've got nobody back there to run the plays going forward. So I think quarterback, Carmine, is the spot he needs to be worried about first off.
Definitely agree. And also that offensive line, letting go of his O-line coach, then letting go of the offensive coordinator. And that offensive line didn't provide any running game. You could say a lot of that had to do with the running backs and relying so much on Lenora Sellers. But if you can't have a running game, then that's, as you guys know, that's the basis of everything for very successful teams. Running game travels, and stopping the run is, of course, crucial. But if you can't run and establish, okay, we can get 4 or 5 yards per carry and move the ball down the field with consistency, I think you got to bring in some O-line guys to bolster everything. And then, yeah, definitely with the quarterback. Lenoris, with such a disappointing season overall, I mean, you look at what his potential was as far as the physical attributes, his crazy runs, the win over Clemson last season, and all the ranked opponents they beat that they failed to beat in the tough stretch of SEC play this year. And then you just constantly look at a lot of it was Lenoris making crucial mistakes in the fourth quarter. The Alabama fumble with the game in hand, or right, very competitive with a minute and a half left. This Clemson game, no points in the second half. And then the pick 6, that was the gut punch. And you're just like, you can't just have these huge errors. And I would love to see Cutter Woods get a chance. I know I've been talking about him, but the Westside High School and Anderson native from right here in the upstate has shown a lot of potential, looked great in the spring game. I know it's just the spring game, but I would love to see him get a chance at quarterback. But O-line and quarterback, I think, are the two big question marks, and running back too.
Yeah, well, I think first thing, he really needs to nail down this offensive coordinator position, because that could play a role in Lenoris's decision to stay or go. So I would say hire that offensive coordinator, then do your best to see if you can keep Lenoris. And also, some very good points that you made there, Carmine, about the offensive line, because if you don't have the offensive line to protect your quarterback and open the lanes for the running back, then your offense just isn't going to go anywhere. Kevin.
Yeah, Rick, the problem with talking to Lenoris about this offensive coordinator hire is it's a really fine line. Like, how much input do you want to give this guy who, at best, is probably coming back for a year? If you're Shane Beamer, you got to not only think about this year, you got to think about your potential of staying at South Carolina after next year and hopefully for the next half decade or more. So how much leeway do you want to give, and how much stock do you want to put into Lenoris Sellers' opinion on who you're going to be as the offensive coordinator if he's just the guy who's going to be here for the next year or so?
Yeah. I'm not necessarily saying that he needs to talk to Lenoris and get his advice or get his opinion, but hire the guy that you think is going to be best for the Gamecocks moving forward. What's going to work with the players that you have on board? How is that guy going to work with the assistants? Is he going to want to bring in some of his own people? And hopefully, if Lenoris decides to stay, it'll all work fine. If not, then he's got some quarterbacks there on the roster, but very little experience. You mentioned Cutter Woods. Mm-hmm. He looked good in the spring game, and maybe the 1 or 2 chances he got to run a few plays during the regular season. But what can he do if he's the guy going against an SEC schedule? So that's a big question mark. Right. So maybe he does need to go get into the portal.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting. It'll also be interesting to see what happens with this game in the future. I mean, if we pull up the video here, one of the great things about Shane Beamer is how beloved he seems to be by everybody at Clemson. And I know Gamecocks fans clearly don't want to hear that when you come up short this year. But the camaraderie's great. Dabo loves Beamer's young son, too, and asking about his youth football career and bringing him along, and just really cool to see. But also, Dabo was asked at the end of his press conference after beating South Carolina about what he would say to Gamecocks fans regarding Shane Beamer and his future as a coach there. And Dabo first started off by saying, Gamecocks fans are going to want to hear from me the least of anybody right now. But he stuck up for his buddy there, Shane Beamer. And here's what Dabo said about Coach Beamer.
You hang in there, And I'm glad that Clemson people didn't give up on me. That was a bad stretch, but we were winning big. We were beating Ohio State, we were beating LSU, we're beating Oklahoma, we're winning big games, we're doing a lot of stuff, but we're coming up short in this game. Clemson people just hung in there, and you just got to keep battling. Eventually these things, you find a way, but again, I'm not gonna evaluate for the Gamecock people, but all I can tell you is, you know, Coach Beamer's he's a good coach. He cares. He's about the right things, and got a lot of respect for him.
All right.
And Rick, you know, from a little bit more of an outside perspective, with us being in the upstate but covering the Gamecocks, I don't think Shane Beamer's care can ever be questioned. But if that care doesn't come along with wins, then your fan base, as we heard speaking with some fans after, is going to be questioning, you know, the coaching more so than applauding the care that you have for your team.
Well, getting back to the relationship between Dabo and Shane, having been around them a couple of times in social settings, they really do like each other. I mean, it's genuine. And Shane joked, like when he first got here, about how his son, Hunter, before Shane got this job, he was talking about how he would love to play for Clemson. So we all got a big laugh out of that. But yeah, bottom line, Shane has to win. He knows it, or else the fans will be on him. All right, Producer Nick, did you say it's time for a break? Yeah, yes, he did. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
Well, we're talking about potential moves in the SEC, and we have to talk about the biggest move in the SEC for one of the most polarizing characters in the SEC and all of college football, Lane Kiffin, going from Ole Miss to LSU and taking over in Baton Rouge. No fake Southern accent like Brian Kelly, and no Duval like the Jacksonville Jaguars coach, although he did do an Ed Orgeron impression, which if he can win like Ed did with the LSU Tigers beating Clemson for their undefeated season in 2019 with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, then he'll be beloved and he can speak however he wants, because that's what they're all about in LSU, like most places, is winning. And they just get the most high-profile coach, bring him in, and a lot of times it works out for him. But Lane Kiffin said that God really was the one who told him to take this job. And we'll talk about Marty Smith at ESPN and his reporting on the situation too. I think there were a few other factors that led him to LSU, and a couple of them, Lane Kiffin said in his introductory press conference, were two very influential coaches that he's talked to along the way.
I just talked to them, and it really was apparent I felt like everybody that I talked to outside of the state that I was in all basically said the same thing, okay? They all said, man, you are going to regret it if you don't take the shot and you don't go to LSU. It's the best job in America, it's the best resources, and to win it. And it's obviously been done here before by a number of people. And, you know, Pete Carroll, really, he told me, you know, that he always told my dad that he'd look out for me. And so when we were talking, he really channeled him up, you know, from knowing him for so long, and he said this is exactly what he would do. He would tell you, boy, go get it, go for it. And, you know, Coach Saban kind of coached at another place in this conference, so I can't really say exactly what he said, but I'll say I think the world of Coach Saban, and I respect him, and so there's a reason I'm here.
So the recruiting advantages, the money, a couple of the big factors to get him there to LSU. But also, Kevin, one of the things I found interesting was Lane Kiffin somewhat blaming the athletic director of Ole Miss for Lane not being able to coach this Ole Miss team through the playoff, when it's like, you made this move. I mean, if you want to leave, you got to leave now. You can't be, that's like cheating on your wife. And then you say, well, honey, it's the holidays, though. We have a couple great holiday parties. Let's just stay together throughout the holidays, and then by the end, we'll cut it loose and we'll go our separate ways. You can't do that, Kevin.
You can't, but it's also the matter of the fact that he went to an in-conference rival. I mean, if he had taken the job at UCLA
right,
or Penn State or another job like that, I think they probably work out something where he coaches through the playoff and tries to win them a national championship. But he's going to a team that Ole Miss hates. and it's one of their, if not their biggest rival in the SEC. There is no way they were going to let him stay in that building over the course of the next, as many as, 6 to 7 weeks and spend more time with these kids. And every time he's at practice, say, hey, that was a good throw. You know what else would be a good throw is if you came with me to LSU and did it down there. That would work out well for you, too.
Right.
There's no way it would be malpractice if the AD at Ole Miss let him do that. So it's a completely understandable move, and it's nothing against Kiffin. If you want to take this job, that is completely fine. You were well within your right to do that, but they can't let you, just stay in that building over the course of the next few weeks when they know you're taking that job. Now, personally, as soon as the governor of Louisiana started sticking his nose into this stuff and saying that they were going to put a cap on the buyouts and stuff like that, that's when I would have started looking at other jobs or maybe just staying at Ole Miss, because we all know that if they don't win a national championship or at least get to a national title game in those first 2 years, that seat in Baton Rouge, Rick, is going to be really, really hot.
I was just thinking, Kevin, all those people who told Kiffin, yeah, you got to go to LSU. But what if he doesn't get it done? 2 or 3 years. They're going to be very impatient there at LSU because they got him there to win a national championship. And then he'll be thinking, oh, man, maybe I should have stayed at Ole Miss, a team that was basically guaranteed to get into the playoffs. And once you're in, then who knows? Maybe you win it. Or else he's hoping that he can be like Nick Saban, Les Miles, and Ed Orgeron. Those are guys who didn't have national championships on their resumes as a head coach, and they won it. So it'll be interesting to see what happens to Mr. Lane Kiffin. All right, that's going to do it for this segment of Palmetto Sports Daily. We're going to call another timeout, and we'll be back with more on the other side.
Hey, that's going to do it for Palmetto Sports Daily. For Rick and Carmine, I am Kevin. Don't forget you can download our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get podcasts each and every day. That's going to do it for Palmetto Sports Daily. We will see you back here tomorrow.